Good evening and welcome to our forum. I'm Debbie Kay, Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Portland. The League is a nonpartisan organization that works to help citizens make informed choices in elections. We do not endorse any candidate or political party, but rather we give voters the information they need to select a candidate. Membership information is available on our website and at the table at the back of the room. We thank the Carol and Velma Sailing Foundation, the Rose E. Tucker Charitable Trust, the Multnomah Bar Foundation, and Metro East Community Media and Paloma Clothing for their generous contributions to our education fund to make these forums possible. Today's forum is being recorded by Metro East Community Media. The forum will be available for on-demand viewing from a link on our website, lwvpdx.org, and from the website of Metro East Community Media, metroeast.org. To view the forums on local access cable television, see the playback schedule posted on our website and in your program. If you have not yet registered to vote, the last day to do so is tomorrow, April 26th. A League volunteer, I hope, will be here this evening to help you register. And if not, we have voter registration forms and can give you other instructions. You can you can contact your county elections office or register online. The online link is at our website, lwvpdx.org. Ballots will be mailed beginning April 27th, and I will now turn the forum over to our moderator. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to you all. Welcome to this forum for Portland City Commissioner position number 1. I'm your moderator, Leslie Moorhead, of the League of Women Voters of Portland. The League of Women Voters has invited all the candidates running for this office. Those who are here today with us are seated at my left in the order in which they will appear on the ballot are Lanita Duke. Thank you. Yes. Lanita Duke, Amanda Fritz, Ann Sanderson, Sarah Long, and David Morrison. Welcome to you all. Each of the candidates will give a 1 1/2 minute opening statement, followed by questions that we have prepared. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer each question. Our volunteer timekeeper sitting in the first row, thank you very much, timekeepers, will signal a 15-second warning and then a stop when the speaker's time has expired. The order in which we select candidates to answer these questions ensures that all are able to answer the first question and the last an equal number of times. To keep things more interesting, not all candidates will answer the same question, but all candidates will answer questions about the same topic area. Following our prepared questions, we will have questions from the audience. Finally, candidates will each give a 1-minute closing statement. Now for our opening statements. Each candidate will have 1 1/2 minutes to introduce themselves and their platform. We will do this in ballot order. Ms. Duke.
Thank you. My name is Lanita Duke, and I'm running for City Commissioner position 1. I'm running because I want a Portland that represents all the people, not a Portland that represents developers and people that are quite wealthy, but a Portland that represents all of us. Right now in the city of Portland, we have 2 Portlands. We have a Portlanders that's sleeping outside on the street. We have Portlanders struggling to meet their mortgage. We have Portlanders unable to find affordable housing. And then we have other Portlanders that are just chilling. They have no big issues, no problems. They're enjoying the benefits of living in this beautiful city. I was born and raised here, and I know what Portland can do. So I'm running just like many people are, but I'm running to create a Portland, a one Portland that represents everyone.
Thank you. Ms. Fritz.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum. I'm Amanda Fritz. I've had the honor of serving you as your Portland City Commissioner for the last 7 years. I was elected using public campaign financing in 2008, and since then I've worked hard to do what I said I would do, prioritizing basic services and infrastructure and spending taxpayers' money wisely, and including all Portlanders in making decisions. I helped pass the paid sick leave ordinance in 2013 in my second term, which led to everybody in Portland being covered with earned paid sick time, and then we got it passed at the state level so that nobody has to worry about staying home if they or a family member are sick. I passed the Fix Our Parks bond in 2014, which is focusing on basic repairs to our parks infrastructure since I'm in charge of parks, and it passed with the highest amount of support from Portlanders ever for a parks bond, and I really appreciate everybody for that. I've worked on banning bee-killing insecticides, opposing oil and coal trains, protecting West Hayden Island. I worked on smoke-free parks. I'm currently working on campaign finance reform and on attending to the business of the bureaus that I'm assigned, which currently is Parks and Recreation and the Office of Neighborhood Involvement. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Sanderson.
Hi, my name's Ann Sanderson, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us tonight. I'm Old Portland. My dad's family's from here, and while I was born in Seattle, I've lived here on and off most of my life. 23 years in Woodstock, where I've raised my kids as a single mom and run my businesses. 2 years ago, I walked into the Woodstock Elementary gym and found out that the city council was poised to pass a tax on us that would have been devastating to small businesses and low-income residents. And what's more, they were looking for public input, but only as a box that they could check. I spent 18 months fighting that tax and learning that when they say they're listening, they're not really hearing us. When I decided to run, it was because we need desperately new leadership on council. Portland is a very beautiful and caring place, but there are two Portlands here, the haves and everyone else. And while we need strong leadership to take care of the crumbling streets, the homeless situation that increases all the time, and the new embracing the new economy, we need someone who actually is a business owner, who understands it from both sides as being the employee and the business owner. And so I'm going to say that we need strong leadership, and we can fix it together.
Ms. Long.
Hello, my name is Sarah Long, and I am a neighborhood activist. And when I've spoken to groups of older people in Portland, I invariably find that when they were my age or younger, they too were activists. So I'm sure I have some fellow elder activists out there among you. So everything Amanda Fritz said sounds really, really good. And I don't think anyone who's, of us who are wanting her seat would go against anything she said. The problem is, I think that all of us think that she hasn't gone nearly far enough to accomplish the goals and aims that she laid out and that the rest of the city desperately needs. I, for instance, am spending part of my days in a tree, which her office has allowed to be cut down. It's an 80-inch diameter tree. It's an unusual species that was brought here from England on a boat as a seedling over 100 years ago. And due to fraud and corruption in the system, that has not been addressed by her office repeatedly. I've worked on this for over a year. We are stuck with a situation where tree killing is okay of our giant trees that we really can't afford to lose. So that's just one example. There are many others, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you about them further.
Mr. Morrison.
Yes, I was encouraged to read that the focus of the League of Women Voters is on educating people and supporting specific issues such as civil rights and environmental protection. Our missions coincide. Compulsory exposure to microwave radiation from Wi-Fi in schools is both an environmental issue and one of civil rights. We're facing the single most unrecognized threat to public health in human history. Schools in 11 countries have removed Wi-Fi for health reasons. Just last week, the city of Haifa in Israel removed Wi-Fi pending a review of the current science Our city council and school board should do the same. Recently, 200 scientists from 39 countries wrote an appeal to the United Nations to reduce exposure levels to protect humans and wildlife, especially children. The United States has the highest allowable exposure levels in the world, 100 times higher than China or Russia. Our city council and school board willfully ignores hundreds of scientific warnings and thousands of peer-reviewed studies that confirm the harmful effects of microwave radiation emitted by school Wi-Fi and cell towers. The simple solution is hardwiring computers in schools. Our city council and school board are mandated to protect the public health by organizing a public campaign of awareness and information on the responsible and rational use of mobile devices.
Thank you. Thank you all for your opening statements. And now for our first question. The topic area is the city budget. But first, please note that half of you will be asked a question about this topic that focuses on revenue, and the other half of you will be asked the same question, but with the focus on spending. You will be called upon in random order, so do pay attention to the focus of the question, revenue or spending, and please answer accordingly. Here's the question. There is a strong perception that the city spends more money than it brings in. Focusing on revenue, what are your thoughts in keeping the city budget financially healthy? Ms. Sanderson.
You know, that perception is out there, and you run into it all the time. And I think the first thing you do is talk about leadership. Because if the city council is spending our money wisely, then they need to make sure we feel that too. And I think that we can all look around at things in our own neighborhoods or on our own streets and find that it isn't the case. The second thing is that when they get into trouble with revenue, they want to bring an extra tax. So we have the arts tax, we had the street fee tax, now we're going to address the gas tax. They're talking, we had the parks bond, we're talking about a bond to address the housing issue. And each time that people are faced with this question, they want to do what's good in their hearts, but then they don't want to be strapped with yet another arts tax that maybe didn't go the way that we had anticipated. So I think it's very important to increase revenues in ways that aren't creating a fatigue in the electorate and a lack of trust.
Thank you. Ms. Fritz.
So the city is required to balance its budget. We're not allowed to spend more than we bring in. And that's one of the reasons that I helped establish the City Budget Office in 2013, which is an independent office. Previously, the budget staff were within the Office of Management and Finance, which is one of the biggest bureaus in the city with a large revenue, with a large amount of money spent on it. So now we have the City Budget Office, which is independent, which is responsive to all 5 council members and to the community. So you can go to the City Budget Office's website and look at what are the revenues, what is the spending, and is that wise? Is that fair? Who benefits and who is burdened? And we have a huge community budget process whereby we have citizen advisors looking at both the revenue and at the spending and advising the city council. We had 300 people at our budget meeting a couple of weeks ago at Alice Hall Middle School in East Portland, and it was wonderful that people know that they can come and talk to their city council about the things that they want to see funded. The revenue, we cut for 7 years over the recession, and we helped get Portland through the recession with a deeper slump than the surrounding cities, and we've recovered faster. Our unemployment rate is the lowest it's been for a long time, and yet there are still a lot of people hurting, and we need to be very careful about raising revenue at a time that we still have not yet paid back and got all the services back that we cut during the recession.
Now, for the other 3 of you, here's the other side of the question. There is a strong perception that the city spends more money than it brings in. Focusing on spending, what are your thoughts in keeping the city budget financially healthy? Ms. Long.
Okay, Amanda Fritz voted to spend $200 million to demolish our reservoirs for no reason, and she hasn't clarified why. You know, she says, well, there was a federal requirement. No, there really wasn't. There was lots of cities that said, okay, so this federal requirement doesn't apply to us. And furthermore, the Crony company that got the contract to build the new ones, they discovered that firm built the covered reservoir at Powell Butte. It has 3,200 cracks in it, and this has just been an ongoing cover-up. And it's like, we can't have that sort of thing happening. So if we want to talk about healthy revenue streams, healthy spending, we can't be doing crony business as usual in City Hall. It's kind of the same with the Portland building. They're going to spend $110 million to renovate the Portland building when all they're complaining about is like the lighting. Trust me, new light bulbs in the Portland building would make a big difference. We should really pursue that, and it would cost less than $110 million.
Mr. Morrison.
Being a single-issue candidate, I have the luxury of answering questions and working my own theme into the answer. So what I would do is to get rid of all the Wi-Fi routers in all the schools and hardwire computer connections, thereby saving a lot of money because routers have to be continuously upgraded, as does software and the hardware. So if you have something stable like a hardwired connection, you don't have to upgrade. And that could also be done in city offices as well.
Ms. Duke.
Well, I said in response to some of the questions from the League of Women Voters that I believed in an auditor's Bill of Rights, that there'd be no spending until it went through an audit review, someone from the auditor's office to look at it. Right now, we talk about public safety. We don't have enough police officers, so we're saving lots of money by not hiring enough police officers when we're transitioning into a summer that may be a long, hot summer for hopeless Portlanders who shoot at other hopeless Portlanders. So in terms of spending, I kind of agree with Sarah Long, my worthy competitor here, that we need to really look at it, but I would like to see every spending bill go through the city auditor's office. And I said that in response to some of the questions from the League of Women Voters. I also need to go back. I'm from the South. I forgot to say thank you so much for inviting us and having this forum. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that.
Thank you. Thank you all. Here's the second question. The topic of the second two-part question is about population growth in Portland. Again, half of you will be asked a question about the topic that focuses on housing, and the other half of you will be asked the same question, but with the focus on jobs. You'll be called upon in random order. Again, the topic is about population growth in Portland. Please do pay attention to the focus of the question, jobs or housing, and please answer accordingly. Here's the question. Estimates indicate that over 200,000 people will be added to Portland over the next 2 years. Focusing on housing, how will you manage this growth? Ms. Sanderson.
Well, we need right now 40,000 units on the ground, and all of the efforts that we're putting in right now aren't going to pay off for several more years. So we're in crisis now with housing and not only into the future. I think we need to focus a lot on things that can be done quickly, and we're not exploring enough the ADUs as tiny houses. If we streamlined the permitting process for ADUs and enabled people to put them in on their properties with little red tape and a smaller bite of property tax increases, I think that we'd encourage people to have some low incoming, because we would ask them to, in exchange for this great new system, to have it be low income ADUs, and then we would put them on the ground now. I think that would be very useful. But the housing situation is not static. Our projections are only projections, and we don't know what is coming around the corner, and so we need to keep an eye on it, because today it was announced that housing purchases have gone down on the West Coast for 3 consecutive months. So while we're planning for a future that we've predicted, we also have to plan for a future that we haven't predicted.
Ms. Long.
Okay, so this one's housing, right?
Housing.
Yes. I'm a member of Stop Demolishing Portland. I was like practically one of the founders, and I'm so fierce on this topic. Okay, so how many of you lived in a remodeled house when you were young? Nobody? You all lived in like houses that were built new? Okay, all I'm saying is most of us lived in housing that was reworked at some point, added on, had rooms added, was maybe internally divided, which has been illegal here in Portland since 1959. If I were Amanda Fritz and had her power right now, I would use, I would bring that before the council and say, since we do have a housing state of emergency, can we please use that to get rid of that provision right now and make it enable more units within our existing structures now? There's all sorts of ways we can add lots of housing units and encourage the sale of vacant housing units that are currently a blight in their neighborhoods without destroying a single house and without cutting down a single tree. I grew up in construction. My dad is a general contractor, and so I sort of have like the inside scoop on how real remodeling is done. So.
Ms. Duke,
So is this the housing question or the job question?
housing,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I kind of want to answer both at the same time. I think Portland is going to have to build. Build, baby, build. We're going to have to look like Seattle. I believe that we need to build up, and as we build up, developers need to add a floor for affordable housing. At the same time, while we're building, we're creating jobs. Not everyone can sit at a computer and make $1 million. We need more jobs for more people to work with their hands to make living wages as they build to deal with the affordable housing crisis that we're in. Furthermore, there's a lot of talk about people on the end of the spectrum economically, the people that are experiencing homelessness, and the people on the upper end who are living large right now. I'm concerned, since I'm advocating for Portland that represents everyone, I'm concerned about the people in the middle. And the idea that I have, because I am a journalist and I am autodidactic, is that Portland could come up with a pilot project to help people who are struggling to pay their mortgage, help them build an extra room. Now that kills 2 birds with 1 stone. We create more housing and we help people that are struggling with their mortgage to pay their mortgage.
Thank you, thank you. I'll ask the question again about jobs. Here's the question. Estimates indicate that over 200,000 people will be added to Portland over the next 2 decades. Focusing on jobs, how would you manage this growth? Ms. Fritz.
So 31 years ago, my husband and I did a nationwide search to find the best place to live and raise a family, and decided that Portland was going to be it. And we arrived here in June of 1986, when I was 7 months pregnant in a Chevrolet Chevette that died after the cross-country journey. And we came because of the healthcare jobs. We came because of the university, Oregon Health Sciences University, and he was a resident there and I was a registered nurse. And so that's one of our industries that we have going for us with the Knight Cancer Institution and OHSU's growth, the cluster of universities that are here in Portland now. We need to focus on the other cluster industries that we have attracted and focused on, the outdoor apparel industry, manufacturing, which provides good jobs for folks who may not have a college education, the software industry. All of these industries are those that we've focused on over the last 7 years and that are starting to boom, and we're going to be seeing the benefits of those. We also need to make sure that the prosperity goes to the neighborhoods. So we established the Neighborhood Prosperity Initiatives in 6 East Portland business districts, which give money to the community to figure out how to do small business improvement, and that too is paying back benefits. We need to continue to do these kinds of strategies.
Mr. Morrison.
Well, I think that we need to look at programs and policies that we lose certain jobs from, like Pacific Gas and Electric, when they installed smart meters, wireless smart meters in homes. There were thousands of meter readers that were laid off from that program. Also, the smart meters are meant to last for 5 years, whereas the other analog meters would last almost continuously. So, and also the smart meters, I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but they pulse microwave radiation about 100,000 times a day, and they turn our home wiring into an antenna which draws in the microwave radiation. Now, I'm sure this sounds weird, so I would like people just to do a brief search on the internet smart meters, safety, EMF, safety, Wi-Fi, safety. Just do it on behalf of your children or your grandchildren.
Thank you. Now we will take questions that the audience has written. Every candidate will answer every question. And again, this is in random order. Here's the first question. I consider climate change to be the most important issue facing the city, the state, and the country. What more do you feel the city should do to deal with this issue? Mr. Morrison.
Glad you asked. Actually, wireless technology uses more energy than any other industry on the planet. People's iPhones use more energy than a modern refrigerator. So I think the City Council needs to create a policy of informing the public that less use of wireless devices saves energy and also would lessen the need for cell towers in our communities and also lessen our exposure, which everybody seems to complain about when a cell tower is put into their neighborhood. So a policy of less use and informing the public that wireless technology is a real problem with climate change.
Ms. Fritz.
I'm proud of having worked on the Climate Action Plan in partnership with the county, and we need to continue to implement the many strategies. There's not a one-size-fits-all. The one that I'm particularly anxious to see done is more sidewalks in all neighborhoods, that people need to be able to access the bus stop, being able to walk to neighborhood centers or wherever they want to in safety. And sidewalks are a basic city service, which many areas of our city are lacking. Even the areas that have sidewalks don't always have the curb cuts that are so necessary for people with disabilities. So that's been one of my things that I continue to ask for and advocate for and seek funding for, and one of the reasons that I'm interested in the gas tax and hope that we'll be able to support and pass that. Secondly, we definitely need to address diesel trucks and the fact that California and Washington State both have much more stringent regulations on diesel emissions than we do. We should work with the state legislature to do that, and if necessary, we should look at a local air quality jurisdiction with the county.
Ms. Long.
I think that Amanda Fritz's answer there reveals just too much about the way she has conducted herself in office. Climate change is a disaster, a catastrophe. We need to be pressing the brakes on it right now. We cannot lose a single one of our mature trees. We have to build around them. I'm so glad that tree houses have come into fashion, okay? Because if we have to densify and add a lot of housing, that's one thing that we need to look at. We cannot lose mature trees. We can't keep throwing entire houses into landfill. We can't keep enhancing an existing car culture. We really do have to batten down on all of those things. And sidewalks and stuff, that ignores the disaster that is our oceans. That ignores the disaster that is people are talking about, oh yay, it's 80 something in April in Portland. Are you joking me? The planet is warming up faster than almost anyone predicted. I mean, it's like exceeding some of the worst expectations. We are headed straight for disaster, and it's hard to even think about, but we need serious and basically revolutionary action right now, not in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Duke.
I think there needs to be a major educational push to educate people at all socioeconomic groups, all races, about the impact of climate change. I'm from a neighborhood where, because of radon exposure in our middle school, Whitaker Middle School, that nobody cared about in 1990, that school had to be demolished because of the radon exposure in that school. No one today really talks about that. But here we had a school, Portland Public Schools, where the children were predominantly low income, where the children were predominantly children of color, where you had a very diverse staff being exposed to radon every day. And it wasn't until they demolished that middle school that all of a sudden it came out and said, oh, there was a radon problem. So to me, that correlates to climate change. There needs to be an education to educate all people how this issue impacts us, especially a few months ago when it rained for 40 days and 40 nights here in Portland. that would have been a great platform for education and how that correlated to climate change.
Ms. Sanderson.
So climate change is real, and we're seeing the effects of it already in the weather. Our focus has been on prevention, but we could have 1,000 Kyoto Accords and not make a dent. And while we are trying to do our best to make the prevention side work, we would be remiss if we didn't focus on mitigating the results of what's happening. 40 days and 40 nights of rain, extreme temperatures, flooding, storms, they're all coming, and we're not ready. And so while we are doing the things to prevent it, we need to be focused on what we can do to mitigate it. And that means putting money into emergency services, emergency management, the 911 system that is needing some more funding and some more training, but also making good choices about planning where we live and how we live so that when we predict the weather is going to change, that we're ready for it.
Thank you all, and here's the second question from the audience. Portland City Council is a notoriously difficult environment to push a single individual's agenda. How will you work with others to achieve your policy goals? Ms. Long.
Everyone currently running for city council is aware that we desperately need a change from the routine, from the establishment. I assume that no matter what, we are going to have a few big-time revolutionaries getting into office who are determined to overturn what we've had so far that has gotten us so deeply into the terrible hole we're in. So that one thing we need to work for is actually the new council system that completely bypasses city council. That's something that's voted on, and that's the Portland Community Equality Act. I'm also working on that. So also, the fact that Portland City Council is notoriously difficult to work, someone can't simply introduce something and have everybody, get together on it. We need to change that system, and it's going to change. Other cities have changed it. Just because we failed last time here doesn't mean it's not going to happen this time. I hope that it will.
Ms. Fritz.
So I worked for 26 years as a psychiatric nurse, and I am known for being collaborative and for working well with others. I'm endorsed by the current mayor, Mayor Charlie Hales, Mayor Sam Adams, and Mayor Tom Potter. And they're three very different styles of leadership, and all of them have enjoyed working with me. I'm also endorsed by the current and two previous chairs of Multnomah County. So I work by getting to know people, to work with them, to talk about things, to try to find out what's coming down the pike and how can I help make it better. In the Oregonians' endorsement, they said that I don't necessarily do that, and that's partly because when I do, I don't take the credit for it. It doesn't matter to me who it is who gets things done as long as we get things done. And I have been able to get things done in partnership with my colleagues, even through the recession and through the last 3 years, which have been challenging. Once we got through the recession, there was much less a surgical look at what needs to be cut and what needs to be spent on, because it seemed like we were expanding the economy. And in some ways, it was easier during the recession when we were desperately working together to try to make things as all right as we could to keep things together and till things recovered. That's what I've been experiencing, and that's the kind of work that I do.
Ms. Duke.
Well, I think we forget that the city council, we don't forget, they are a bunch of, we want to be politicians. Therefore, we have to compromise. There's horse trading. But I want to expand on something Sarah said. Sarah's talking about the at-large voting process. The city, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, is that what you're talking about, baby girl? So she's talking about the at-large voting process. People like myself and Ms. Long believe that city council should be broken up in geographic areas. If we had someone that represented inner Northeast Portland wouldn't be impacted by gentrification and displacement the way it is now. And I think it's ironic, here I am speaking before the League of Women Voters. Did you know back in the 80s, a woman could not walk up and down inner Northeast Portland without being propositioned? Because every man that drove, not every man, but men would drive into my neighborhood to pick up women thinking all women there were prostitutes. So I think if we had geographical representation, we would have had a better and more powerful person to stand up and to prevent the displacement and gentrification that inner Northeast Portland went through. My neighborhood is totally destroyed.
Ms. Sanderson.
So, City Hall and this council is dysfunctional, and so dysfunctional they had to go to therapy. And it doesn't seem to have solved anything. I'm basically a nice person, so I try not to be critical, but I know that I'm not going to be working with Amanda Fritz, and I'm going to agree with the Oregonian, because as a citizen, she wasn't someone who collaborated. And I hear that story when I go out and talk to people and knock on doors and go to neighborhood associations all the time. So just because you say it doesn't make it so. It's because of the way our city government is made up of little fiefdoms of bureaus. They fight for every dollar, and it's a system that takes a certain kind of personality to overcome that and put the good of the city above that. So instead of passing a parks budget, if there are people sleeping on the streets, we should have had them grown together and collaborate on something that was working on homelessness or affordable housing together, and not just for one transportation on the street fee or another of the parks bond. And I don't think they're setting priorities together. Thank you.
Mr. Morrison.
Well, I'm a perfect example of somebody who has not gotten much from the city council because I'm here. And I found that city council members will come to community meetings, and they'll nod accordingly, and they'll act like they're on your side, and then they go back and they vote against you. And this was a situation with the decommissioning of the Mount Tabor Reservoir. There was not a single person in this city who wanted that to happen, and there were 5 commissioners who voted on that. And you know, they say that they're strapped by federal law, except that New York managed to get a 10-year stay for their reservoir, whereas we didn't fight for it at all.
Thank you. Thank you all. Now we will go to closing statements. We will have a 1-minute closing statement from each candidate, and this will be in the order in which you appear on the ballot. Ms. Duke.
Well, again, I want to thank you all for hosting this get-together so that we have an opportunity to voice our concerns and answer your questions. Again, I want to represent a Portland for all people. Portland for people that are sleeping on the sidewalks, a Portland for people who are barely paying their mortgage, as well as Portland for people who are into the arts. I am a journalist, and I also consider myself an artist. The Portland that I know and the Portland that I love can be again. It's not here now, and we need a change. We need a big change, and I want to represent that change.
Ms. Fritz.
It's very easy to identify the problems. It's a lot harder to work on finding solutions. And one thing that I've been involved in the past 3 years is to support the Home for Everyone, which is the plan for ending homelessness, and which I encourage you to look into. There is a plan, and now we need to figure out how to fund it. And I'm prepared to do that in partnership with whoever is next mayor and County Chair Deborah Kafori, who has also endorsed me. The thing that we haven't talked about tonight is the Department of Justice settlement agreement, and that's one of the reasons, the primary reasons that I'm running again, that we still face a police force who are treating people of color and people with mental illnesses in disparate ways, and that we need to continue the good work that's being done by Chief O'Day and others, and we need to continue supporting the Community Oversight Advisory Board, and that's one of the things that I want to do. Please go to my website, amanda2016.com, for more information.
Ms. Sanderson.
It's hard to convey all of your ideas and all of your passion in a minute or a minute and a half or 2 minutes. It is difficult to tell you how much you love the city and that you want to see it do well. That being a politician wasn't the first thing on your list, but you feel like you have to do it because when you talk to everyone in Portland, when you knock on doors, you know that the people of Portland don't feel included in their own government. And you wouldn't have so many activists running for office if they didn't believe it was true as well. I think that we can do better. I think that we can do it collaboratively. We can do it with the people of Portland and not despite them. And you can go to my website, which is annsanderson.com, and weigh in on the issues, because I have a place in there that says if you could tell City Council anything you wanted, what would it be? And you type it in, and I'll take those to City Council with me. Thank you.
Ms. Long?
I agree with everything Ann Sanderson just said. And I, as we've kind of pointed out, I really agree with my colleague Lenita Duke as well. If you don't vote for me, vote for her, because she and I are both in Northeast, and we know how we've felt the gentrification more strongly than any other part of the city. Listening to Amanda Fritz, I know it becomes clear what the problems are with our city government. Okay, I need to quantify it correctly. We need people who are not okay with just continuing the establishment's business as usual. Everything she just said has actually big problems with it. The COAB has big problems. It needs to be, completely reformed. There's so many different ways in which policy needed to be written a lot tougher. And that's what this election is toughness.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison?
I've been working on this issue for about 10 years. I've traveled to Europe and New York and spoken with scientists, interviewed people. I've worked on a legal case with this. And I'd like to refer people to my website, which is wirelesswatchblog.org. And look at the science section and look at the section Wi-Fi in schools. And you'll probably be shocked if you're not familiar with this issue. I'd like to read a couple of the people that are endorsing my campaign. Deborah Davis, who is a Nobel Prize-winning epidemiologist who used to work in the Clinton administration, advising the Health and Human Services Department. Frank Clegg, the former CEO of Microsoft Canada. Barry Trower, who was a former microwave weapons specialist for British military intelligence, who said that Wi-Fi is no different than a microwave weapon.
Thank you. And thank you all. This concludes the League of Women Voters Forum on Portland City Commissioners Position Number 1. We thank each of the candidates for participating in our forum, and thanks also to our timekeepers and other volunteers. Please check our website, lwvpdx.org, to view all of our forums on demand and for replay dates, times, and channels for local access cable TV. Pick up the League of Women Voters Voter's Guide at your local public library, elections office, or New Seasons Market, and the Voter's Guide is also here in the back of the room. Online, you can check vote411.org for a guide to your personal ballot. Election Day is May 17th. As in all Oregon elections, you will receive a mail-in ballot. Ballots must be mailed back early or delivered to an official drop-off site anywhere in Oregon no later than 8 p.m. on Tuesday, May 17th. Postmarks do not count. This is Leslie Moorhead for the League of Women Voters of Portland. Thank you for watching. Please be an informed voter and remember that your vote counts. Thank you, Bill.